Good morning. Good morning. This is Binyam on the Checkin In podcast. Welcome to your Monday. Glad to have you guys joining in. Today is November the 8th, 2021. We are getting into the latter part of the year. Things here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada are getting rather cold. I was out for a walk this weekend and it was noticeably cold. It's been warm for quite some time, last couple of weeks, which has been fantastic. But we're taking the dive. We're taking the dive into the chillier part of the year, and it's later than usual, which is fantastic. But it's like, here we go. Let's brace for it. Friends, I am so thrilled to have these next few moments to spend with you as you listen to the Checkin In podcast. Today is episode number 91. I am a life recalibrator. I help people recalibrate their past so that they can rewrite their futures. I have a gift in seeing things that people usually don't see, especially in context of what's gone on in their life. And how they can see and be encouraged to keep going forward in a way that encourages optimism. Hope is a huge one. And so that's what I love investing myself in. This podcast is geared for me primarily. This is my way of doing self-care on a daily basis, but I love sharing that with you. There are three key pillars that I Good afternoon, Ollie. How are you, my friend? There are three key pillars that I focus on in this podcast that are really important to me, and I want to share those with you by way of a gift. A gift, hello, Joseph, by way of a gift to help you also sort of process some things you're going through in your life. Here are three things that I found really helpful in my current season that I wish I had access to earlier, and they are number one is I'm doing well, Ollie. Thank you for asking. Number one is awareness, growing aware of ourselves. We do not know ourselves as well as we should, or as well as we'd like to know ourselves on an ongoing basis. So, what does that look like to know ourselves well? Number two, kindness. How do we extend kindness to ourselves as we go and embrace change in life? You know, every single one of us listening in here, we are a process in change. I would almost say to be human is to change. And then finally, to pursue happiness in the midst of all these fantastic opportunities and experiencing emotions all the way through this common existence we have. Once again, welcome. Today, we are asking a very interesting question. I put this off for a while here, but I'm finally ready to get to this question. And the question today that we're answering is a self reflection question, kind of based on helping us in our personal growth. The question goes as following: which qualities do you most admire in others that you wish you had yourself? Which qualities do you most admire in others that you wish you had yourself? Isn't that a beautiful question? I love this question. However, I did struggle with this question. I did struggle because I've been on a rigorous sort of attentive focus. I've been paying attentive focus to my body and to my character in trying to become a better version of me. That has been something that has been on my radar for quite some time now. I've given it some serious attention. And as I keep attending to it, I keep getting better. And I love what I see in how I'm developing as a person. And so the more that we start to work on something, the better we become at it, the things that we need to work on sort of diminish, right? And so this question is more about getting us to acknowledge beautiful things we see in those around us that we also are inspired to become more like. It's a beautiful question. I love the opportunity that it gives. It gives us the opportunity, dear friends, to be able to be aware, not only of ourselves, but those who we have in our lives. That's a hard question, says Joseph. I would say more kindness sometimes. I can be a little harsh. Gotcha. Come to Toronto, says my dear friend K-Man. Oh, my dear Cayman, I would love to come and visit in Toronto. And it would be a crime if I did not reach out to you when I did come, right? We make plans as best as we can, right, Cayman? I know I have made some wonderful, ambitious plans. A lot of times they don't work out, and yet I keep striving. And so I would, Yeah, I would definitely love to connect with you in person there. I'm asked here by Jometa, favorite crypto coin. I don't know. I don't really know the lay of the land in that area. I haven't devoted some time. It's an area of interest to be certain. NFTs, crypto, like this whole new shift here that we seem to be moving towards. I'm intrigued, but I don't know well enough to be able to participate, nor do I have the resources at the current time to be able to invest that way. So I don't know, my friend. I would love to hear some of your thoughts on that. But friends, as we look at this question, which qualities do you admire most in others? I love that this podcast, we have a focus primarily of saying, let's start off with ourselves. Let's start off being aware of who we are and how we're wired and how we're moving into this world going forward. This is a really important part for me as I reflect on this. How do we connect with others is really dependent on how well do we know ourselves. How well do we know what we find really valuable, right? What characteristics do we find really important? So Joseph here was just sharing how for him it would be kindness. He loves expressions of kindness in others because he is saying he struggles with being a little harsh at times. That's a different thing for me because I feel I have a generosity with kindness. I know and I can acknowledge that one of my gifts is being kind. That's one of the things that people know me for. They say you're the one of the kindest people we've ever met. And I can acknowledge that because I know how I've worked on that for a long time. Hello, Wolf. And so that makes sense, right? So kindness wouldn't make it on my list of things that I admire in others. Although I can appreciate when I see it in others, I'll be like, I like that. Over the weekend, usually on weekends, on Saturday nights, I devote time to spending time with a small close nucleus of friends, and we have a fantastic time. Well, what do we do? We sit around, we talk, we laugh, we share, we experience things together, usually at one of our friends' homes. It's a wonderful time. And we've done this for a few years now. And it's a really tight group that we've come to experience. Good morning, Brandon. And so as we do this, it's been one of those commitments for me to say, this is part of what I want to make space for in my life. We just sit around and talk. For some people, they might find that really boring. Other people, they'll be like, hey, what kind of talk do you have? It's rich conversation. Can I say it is like, oh, amazing, amazing, like the way that we're able to engage and connect with each other. It's amazing. It's something that feeds my soul and it feeds theirs. One of the things that I can acknowledge is that I have this gift of being able to create wonderful context for communities. So as we get together, it's fantastic. It's fantastic because I'm able to connect with these individuals. I'm able to connect with them, and I'm able to get to know them, and I'm able to propose fantastic conversation ideas, and so it becomes really beautiful, right? Yo, my Mr. Uber has a podcast, says Liam. uh, Yes, I do. I'm a multi-diverse in my giftings. So as I reflect on this ability that I have to help create community, this weekend we had some new members or visitors come join our group, and as they joined in, it was funny. Thanks for sharing, by the way, Brandon. I appreciate you sharing the podcast. As they joined in, my group of friends were so thrilled because one of the individuals was really sharp. He has similar gifts like I do in asking good questions and challenging me even, and so they were so thrilled to see someone sort of rise up and sort of give me a good challenge in what I do really well. They were so thrilled about that kind of back and forth. And so this individual, he had some great gifts socially, like I do, and I didn't have to do as much talking this weekend. I let him run with it. That's awesome. Look, says Liam says that's awesome. Look forward to hearing more about your conversations and openness and kindness. Thank you, Liam. Appreciate you, buddy. So as I sat back and watched him do his thing, it wasn't that I was thinking, I wish I had his gift. I knew I had his gift. He and I shared the same gift. So I was just happy to sit back and watch him in action. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. And so that isn't necessarily one of the things I would have on my radar by saying, I wish I had this attribute that this person has because I have it, right? So it's acknowledging that we're so different that each of us has unique gifts. For example, a mechanic would have wonderful know-how in looking at an engine and diagnosing that engine and running diagnostics on it and fixing it. And I'd be like, I wish I had that skill. I don't have that. I would love that skill that he has. I can appreciate, admire it, and say, I wish I had that, right? What is it like for you to be able to admire some qualities, characteristics, traits, evidences that others around you have that you're like, I would like to have that. Hello, MC. How are you? No, long time no see. So that's what the question is asking. Which qualities do you most admire in others? For you to know what qualities you admire most in others, first of all, you have to know what qualities you admire yourself. Do you admire kindness, or do you admire generosity, or do you admire gentleness, or balanced life? Like, what kind of expression does it take for you to say, I like that? I don't have access to that, and I would like to have access. I would like to be around this person more so I can grow in my ability to connect with them this way. That's how I'm processing this question here. Know yourself first so you know how to be able to express what your needs and desires are with others around you. Really helpful sequential process that we must follow there. So, which qualities do you most admire in others? And I love that it gets us not only looking at ourselves and what we admire, but also how we can appreciate those around us. What is it in others that we really appreciate? MC says, good man, you still preaching. Good job, bro. Thank you. Thank you, MC. So, what does that translates to in our own experience when we look around at others and say, I love this aspect of this person. They're so gentle. I like how patient they are. I like how generous they are. I like how well put together they are for whatever reason. And as you're admiring them, one of the challenges I'm going to give you is how can you go a little further and not only admire it, but also speak it into existence? And I'll tell you why that's important as we go through the podcast here this morning. And then there's the second part of this question. It says that you wish you had yourself. Hello, Dylan. It's really important for us to keep on striving, to keep on dreaming, to keep on reaching, to keep on desiring for something that we have yet to acquire or get to. I think it's a really important component in our experience collectively is to say, how can we get to that place where we can get to experience more than we presently are experiencing? That's the story of my life, for example. One of the things I was mentioning to my friends, okay, Liam says, what's your view on, oh, hold on. What's your view on water of a duck's back? Oh, water off a duck's back and moving on from negative vibes. Oh, okay. That's a good question, Liam. Dylan says, love you, man. Such a good guy. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Liam goes on to say, bro, start business, not broadcast. Go back to Uber, save money, and start real business. I am very committed, my friend, to making sure that I'm looking after my economic needs. However, there is purpose to why I do what I do in life. I do a podcast, for example, because it is my way of sharing value with my community. One of my values is being generous. This is me being generous with my time and saying, I could be working and making money right now, but if that's all we're about in life, I think we miss the very heart of what makes life rich. By all means, we need to make an income, but it would be empty if I could make millions of dollars, have a beautiful home, cars, all the dream, and enjoy it all by myself because I never worked at how to connect with people. Here is where I find a purpose in life, and that's what gives me this sense of desire to extend myself this way. So, yeah, I definitely want to see this as a business one day, but I got to work my way there too. Let me go back to the question here. What's my view of water off a duck's back and moving on from negative experiences? I think it's important, but not to do it too like if you skip steps along the way where you are ignoring the way it makes you feel and you're not grieving some tough things along the way, it's not necessarily, hey, just forget about it, move on. No, no, no. It's like give yourself time to process what happened there, grieve the loss of whatever it is that you're gonna have to say goodbye to as you move forward. By all means, move forward, but still attend to those things that are going on in here, in your heart and your mind. If you're really upset about it, make space to express that upsetness because in so doing, you're able to process and move on to something new. If you don't, all that negative stuff is still kept here and dealt with and becomes far more significant of an issue that is not going to serve you well. So I'd say water for ducks back. It is water off a duck's back if it's not a big deal. If it's like, whatever, I'm moving on, then yeah. But if it's something more significant, it's not so simple. In that scenario, you need to attend more to processing what it was that you're saying goodbye to and how you can move on from there. That's an important component. Does that make sense, my friend? That's a really important thing for me as I think about that. So good question. I really appreciate that. But yeah, which qualities in others do you admire so much that you also wish you had them in yourself? Really helpful question, and one that would serve us well if we were to give more time to it. Because one of the things that it also points to is this awareness that we should not be trying to do life on our own. If we're trying to do life on our own, it's a really tough go. We were made to be social, from the most introvertish of us to the most extrovertish of us. The question is, how are we finding ourselves in community, in that support network that enables us to get to be a better version of us, experience some beautiful things along the way? How can we reach out and express help or the need for help, right? And so this takes us acknowledging that we don't have everything comprehensively in our corner in such a way that we are a complete package. We are growing, we are having to learn. Liam says, that's a wise answer and went deeper. Appreciate you taking the time to answer that, bro. It's my pleasure, my friend. See, this is the thing. You were helped because you're in this community. I was able to speak to your circumstances based on my experience, not because I've always known that. I had to learn that along the way from others who were able to invest in me. So, again, with our question, which qualities do you most admire in others? You're saying, I really appreciate the depth of your answer. You went more than I anticipated you would, and that helped you, right? So you're admiring that aid that you got in the answer to be able to help you a little further on. That's my story too. I was talking with my friends, like I was about to say earlier, that I get lots of people who are saying to me, "Hey, you are amazing. You do so well at what you do. You have so many good things to share with the world." And so I'm on the receiving end of a lot of love, a lot of positive affirmation, and it's a beautiful thing to experience. I am super grateful for it. But as I experience all these things, what I must do for myself in acknowledging it and saying, hey, thank you for this beautiful gift that you've given me of appreciation. I really appreciate that. But now, if I were to keep on focusing on this medallion of good things that they're sharing with me, if I were to focus on that and say, "Hey, look at this," and I keep on gathering it, what would happen in my context is I would start getting proud, I would start getting arrogant, I would start getting presumptuous, I would start getting cocky, like a whole bunch of things that I don't want to have happen in my own experience. So as I acknowledge praise and kudos from those around me, I acknowledge it, but then I put it away in a place I will I'm not going to go back and reflect on it again. Why is that? Because as I acknowledge and then move on from that praise, it keeps reminding me that in this present moment, I want to work hard at earning this connection with whoever I'm with. I never want to get to the point where I'm saying, "Oh yeah, of course people love me," and no, 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 no. I don't want to take that for granted. I want to continue to earn that in this present moment. I want to earn that right to be heard. I want to earn that right to gain trust and influence in the present moment. And so I keep myself in this zone of humility, for lack of better words, by forgetting the good things that people are offering me and saying, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And then I move back to my recalibration zone here where I'm saying, okay, now what does it take for me to earn this moment with this individual, where in this moment we can experience something beautiful in the way that we're sharing with one another? Does that make sense? That's how it makes sense for me. Definitely didn't expect that depth. Hit me strongly, but wise, wise. Thank you, Liam. I'm so happy I could encourage you in your context. Like I say, you've got beautiful things to share, my friend. Beautiful things, you know. And so this is how we grow in life. We grow because we are willing to voluntarily share and give a little bit extra. You didn't have to pay for that. And I'm glad you didn't have to pay for it, because now for free, I've given you something that you can go and benefit from in a wonderful way. Go and do likewise with others in your world. Go and find some people that you can influence, even if they're young kids, and say, hey, I'm going to give you some time here to be able to connect with you, to be able to affirm you, to be able to encourage you a little further in your own context. That's what makes life really beautiful and rich. Give me this kind of connection, this kind of richness in the way we engage, and I'll take it any day over any $1 million mansion, any day. Right? This is where I find tremendous worth. Give me a very meager and humble setting that I can enjoy in the company of friends over the companionship of riches and materials and lavishness. I'd rather give that up because that doesn't speak to me the way this does. Got a lot of time, just left my job, searching for what's next. It's an uncertain season for many of us, Liam. I'm also on the same page with you. Uncertainty and scariness, and yet it's helpful when you can experience that in community. All right, friends, let me get to my answer of this question here. I'm waxing eloquent here. Which qualities do you most admire in others that you wish you had in yourself? Love this. There are so many good things that I acknowledge that I have in my experience. Love, and I'm so thankful for what I get to experience in my personal context. Here's a handful. I just had to like put them out in front of me here because I'm like, I needed help on this one here. There are some things that I really admire in others. I love expressions of modesty. Modesty, oh, it's almost like a cousin to me of humility. Modesty, when a person has, for example, let's say, let me take my one really good friend, Joshua. You can find him on our other podcast, Friendology, and you can see that on my YouTube broadcast if you want to see what he looks like. I have a special folder or playlist called Friendology. That's that podcaster that he's part of. He's sort of the ringleader in our group of friends, and he gets everyone together. He invites people into his home. He lives super modest. Let me tell you, he is successful in his business as a psychologist. He gets paid really well, and yet you would never know it. He drives a modest car. He lives in a modest home in a modest community, and one might ask, where does he invest himself? Where does he spend his money? Because I mean, he could afford like a beautiful home. He could afford a beautiful car. He could live in a different economic bracket, and yet he chooses not to because he takes his investments and he invests it in our community. He buys food and drinks and makes space for us to get together. That's modesty for me. He doesn't flaunt it. He apportions it in specific ways that I look at and say that's a beautiful expression, and I'm inspired by that. So that's wonderful. Modesty is one. Self-discipline is another one. Self-discipline to be able to say, hey, I'm going to apply myself to whatever pursuit I'm doing in a way where it can be inconvenient. I'm going to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning every morning to get this job done because this is what's important. I love expressions of self-discipline. It's like a way of saying delayed gratification is still in play today. Love watching those evidences. Liam says it's 5 a.m. here in New Zealand. I'm off to bed. Take care, brother. Keep growing and keep your head high. Thank you. I appreciate you. Wait, says Josh, are you in Calgary? I am in Calgary. Can you see the Calgary Tower behind me? Right over there. I am in Calgary. Are you also here as well, Josh? So self discipline is another one. I love watching people who are inspiring at what they do. Oh man, like here's one that I really have been influenced by. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk. Love watching Gary Vaynerchuk. I love his theme. I love his vibe. He uses a lot of cuss words, a lot of swear words, which that's him. Like I'm not saying that's bad or good, but for some people it's a turnoff. I look past that at his heart and why he's doing what he's doing. Love it. I'm like, I'm in. I love what he does, and I love how he inspires people. I like how he gives tremendous value for free. Another individual like that, Graham Cochran. Graham Cochran. He's also a voice I've started listening to recently. Love what he does. And one that he commends in the same way is what's his name now? Oh, it's a unique name. I'm seeing this. Ramit something. Ramit Seish or something like that. And he's another one that gives so much value. I'm actually in Edmonton, says Josh, but still, I did not know you were so close. Love your content. Keep it up. Thank you. I appreciate that, Josh. Thank you for being here as well. So, yes, modesty, self discipline, inspiring personalities that are in it for the right reason. Love what they do. I love watching them at their craft. Now, people have told me I'm super inspiring and that should be like a motivational speaker. And I've acknowledged that, saying, oh, I didn't see that in myself, but that's really helpful intel. I'm going to consider that. So I don't quite see myself in their league yet. And yet I'm grateful that I have some elements of that. I love expressions of gentleness. Oh my goodness, I find gentleness so attractive. One who's gentle and gracious, and oh, it's just a beautiful thing. Do you see how I am admiring these qualities, these attributes that others have that I wish I had more of? I would not know that I want more of these unless I knew myself well enough. So it really takes a good dose of knowing oneself well and saying, here's what really matters to me, and here's how I want to navigate forward in admiring these. That's what it takes for me. Gentleness. Devotion, seeing someone in their story who has committed over time to something that is really important. For example, I some of you are moms in my audience here, and I have a high degree of admiration for moms. In fact, my mom is my personal hero. She'll never be matched in that category, but she's had such a huge impact on me. When I see moms, Brandon, I've met your mom as well, and she's an amazing specimen of humanity. When I meet moms, especially when I meet single moms, which some of you are, and you know who you are, there's this degree of admiration that I have because of the devotion that you commit to and giving your whole life in dedication for raising your children. Love what I see there. And I say, I wish I had more of that in my own context to be able to accomplish what I do. So kudos and hats off to moms and what they're able to accomplish. I so appreciate you, moms, and what you're able to do. Courageousness, man, standing in defiance of opposition, that takes courage. When one takes the steps that I encourage on this podcast to become aware of themselves, that's massive courage because that's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to say, I'm going to try to become a better version of me, even if it means I'm going to have to address what's going on here. That's huge. That is massive, right? Massive. And yet it's critical, I think. It's critical to acknowledge the courage that it takes to be able to step into that space and say, hey, I'm going to engage you at this place today in such a way whereby you're going to feel some wonderful things in the outcome. Courage on display. One of the most courageous things I would say is being able to see oneself and endeavor to grow to be a better version of oneself. That is amazing. So important and so critical, and something that I so value and admire. So amazing. Okay. And then, of course, there's confidence. I love expression. Confidence, I would almost say, is another cousin of courageousness. But that sense of confidence to step up and be in one's power and speak in very definitive ways. My goodness. And this last one is one that I really admire and I don't see very much in my own context, and yet I would like to. And so that's something that I'm committed to personally is seeing how I can bring more balance in my life. When I see it in others, I'm like, that's amazing. I wish I had more of that in my own context. But in the absence of it, I admire it in others. I admire it in such a way where I'm like, that's beautiful. And I'd like more of that. So those are some attributes that I picked out here that I said these are important to me. I don't see them quite as much as I'd like to see them in my own experience yet. When I see them in others, I admire them and I say, gosh, that is wonderful, and I'd like a piece of that. I would like to experience that more in my own experience. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, friends, let me finish this podcast off with the extension I hinted at earlier. This takes an awareness of oneself so that we know what do we value. My list probably doesn't resonate with you because you have a different set that you are drawn to and that you find admirable. Whatever it is, it's important to start off with knowing yourself well enough in the first place. And then as you know yourself, the extension of that is how can you identify what you really appreciate in others? That's what the question was. Which qualities do you most admire in others that you wish you had more in yourself? That's a wonderful thing to do. Now, as you're going through this exercise that we went through today in admiring attributes and characteristics in others, can I suggest that you close the loop? Close the loop in the following way. As you admire and acknowledge these things in others that are amazing, what would it take for you to go a little further? Whether you give them a call, you take them out for coffee, you look for those opportunities to look them in the eye and say, listen, I admire this in you, and I wish I had it more myself. I'm acknowledging that you have this expression right here, and it's beautiful, and I want you to know that I see it and I appreciate it. Here's what that does. This person may never have heard an encouragement like this or an observation because we don't do this in general. This may be the first time that they're hearing something like this in their own experience that boosts their encouragement factor. And they're like, I never knew I had that. Maybe they needed to hear something really encouraging in their day, and you were that vehicle. And you pass on some tremendous happiness there. So, friends, not only admiring others, but let's go a little further, even than the question entails today. Let's extend ourselves and say, hey, I appreciate you for X, Y, and Z reasons. Look for that opportunity today. Thank you for joining us on this 91st episode. I will see you tomorrow. Love you guys.